Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this first edition of the week. Tonight, core government policies to be maintained in the coming budget, also new options for beneficiaries under the Umbrella Benefit Sharing Agreement in PNG LNG, also an increasing number of youths diagnosed with mental disorder, and the start to the grade 12 examinations. Two key announcements on financial matters from the government over the weekend. Firstly, the budget. It's not election-orientated as might be expected. And new options for beneficiaries under UBSA, the Umbrella Benefit Sharing Agreement. We begin with the budget. The government says its core policies will be reflected in the money plan next year. Elections next year, and it would seem inevitable that the government would have to have that in mind when formulating the money plan. Not so, says the Prime Minister. Peter O'Neill said, while previous governments had sought to inflate spending ahead of a national election in order to increase votes, the O'Neill-Dion government has more respect for the people and will not go down such an irresponsible path. He cited the Makere-Marauta budget in 2001 as such that failed to win back the government then in 2002. Mr. O'Neill credited Papua New Guineans as knowledgeable. Their intelligence can no longer be insulted with such tactics. Papua New Guinea has gone through good and bad times. The budget, therefore, will be thoroughly considered to consolidate on the good and improve on the downside, and that will come about based on the combined decade of economic governance experience between Treasurer Patrick Pruach and Mr. O'Neill himself. The government's core policies of health, education, infrastructure, law and order, efficiency in the public service, and funding of district developments through the DSIP funds will continue. Mr. O'Neill also spoke of delivering APEC in 2018 in an efficient and sensible way, the Pacific way. The 200 APEC meetings scheduled will be carefully planned for maximum benefits to flow back to the growth sectors of tourism, agriculture, fisheries, and SMEs. The November budget session begins next Tuesday. Also to do with money and how people benefit, it's changes to the 2009 Umbrella Benefit Sharing Agreement, UBSA, in the PNG LNG project. The government has announced changes to counter the effects of lower than expected gas prices in the future. It approved options designed to make it easy for beneficiaries to raise funds to buy shares. The options are basically to make it affordable for them to finance their shares in the PNG LNG project. The original agreed option was granted under terms reached between landowners and provincial and national governments in 2009, referred to now as the Kokopo UBSA. It gave an indirect interest in the project at a fixed price calculated at $240 million for each indirect 1% interest. That was arrived at with a view that commodity prices would rise. But the opposite has been true over 2 years. Oil prices dropped from $120 per barrel to 26. Currently, it's at $50 per barrel. Given that backdrop, here then is the government's rescue package. The discount offer in the purchase of shares from $240 million to 150 for the equivalent of 1% direct interest in the project. That will be just a little over half the original fixed price of $1.01 billion payable to the government. The Kumul Holdings Limited to offer vendor financing to each UBSA beneficiary group. This is a bridging finance offered in these tough times, but does not restrict beneficiary groups from raising funds elsewhere. Once the state is paid back the $640 million, the interest in Croton will be transferred to them. Croton is a company overseeing the state's interest in the PNG LNG project. The Prime Minister said this is a NEC decision based on sound technical and financial advice. It provides a good deal for the beneficiaries without having to put money up front during times of low oil prices. An arrangement far more attractive and just. The same would not have been possible had shareholders sourced finance from banks or other financiers. PNG tonight, after the break, the increasing number of young people diagnosed with mental disorder.